Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today I am sharing a quilling comb project. I'm going to be making a shamrock, and this is actually one of my first projects I put on my website, and I had completely forgotten that I even made this. It showed up on Pinterest, recommended to me recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never made a video about this, so let's do that. I'm going to be using two different greens. I have lime green, which is a lighter one from Quilt Creations, and Craft Harbor's Holiday Green. I have my quilling comb, and I do have a needle tool here because I like to make a little anchor on that to start with. I'm going to be using Elmer's glue all in my needle nose bottle. Some tweezers are definitely needed for this project. I do have a work board covered with wax paper and some pins because that's going to be helpful as well. So to start with, I'm going to be taking the lighter of my two papers. I need less than one strip for each of the leaves on this shamrock, but I'm going to be making just one leaf at a time. I'm going to start off with my needle tool and roll a couple of turns on my tool just to get a little bit of what I like to call an anchor. I think that's the easiest way to start off on your quilling comb, because it just gives a nice sturdy place to start. And I'm going to put that right in the center of my quilling comb. Bear in mind, if your comb is different than mine is, you might end up with different size leaves for your project. That's okay. It's the same process. So I started off with my tail in the back, and I just wound it in front of and then back behind the next tooth on my comb, pulled it to back, brought it up to wrap it around one tooth on the other side of that anchor. Then back down, back to the front, wrap it around, back up, wrap it around one on the other side, back down again. So what I'm doing is just weaving to the front and then bringing the rest of the strip to the back. And I'm looking for 7 loops altogether. So that's my anchor, and then 3 on one side and 3 on the other, just weaving back and forth every time. I do have some extra paper on the back, so I'm going to hold it in place with my thumb and tear off some of that, but leaving a bit of a tail still from that light green paper. Now, keeping my weaving on my quilling comb, I'm going to take my strip of dark green, which I have already torn a little bit of paper off because I want a torn edge for a nice smooth seal. Going to put a little bit of glue on top of the end of my light green strip and glue my dark green right to that, because I'm going to make this have a second color and keep weaving. So at that point, I pull my strip back up to the front again, just the same way I was doing with the light green. Wrap it around and pull it back to the other side. Same exact motion as the other color. There's another one. And one more on that side, back to the back. One more on that side. And so I'm looking for 2 on either side of the darker green. So that was 7 wraps with the light green and then 2 with the dark green. Rip off my excess. And at this point, I can put glue to the underside of what's left. I'm going to glue that to the back of what I just wove. I'm not going to add another color to this. If you wanted to keep going and make yours bigger and have maybe more different colors of green, absolutely, that would look really cool. For this project, I'm just using the 2. And once you have that end of your strip glued down, you can gently slide off your quilling paper off your quilling tool. I hold mine on either side, just pull it off. Remember, we didn't add any glue to the layers, so if I let go, it's going to kind of spring up and out. I solved that problem by holding the sides and everything stays together. Now we're going to start making this into our leaf shape. We're going to put a little bit of glue right on one of the ends so that when we curl it up like this, it's going to meet the other side. And all of our beautiful weaving stays on the inside. This is where your tweezers are going to come in handy. We're going to use them kind of like a clamp. Put it right between 2 of the loops, hold that together, They make reverse tweezers, which are nice for this, where instead of pushing it closed, you push it open. That would work well for this too, but that kind of messes my brain up, so I don't like to use the reverse ones. My brain doesn't like to think in the opposite way sometimes. So for each shamrock, we're going to need 6 of those multicolored little weavings that we just did. And we're going to make them into shamrock leaf shapes by gluing 2 of them together to make what's going to look like sort of a heart. If you were going to make this in reddish tones, this would be cute for Valentine's Day as well. To keep this really nice and together, I like to use pins, and I put some in the top and I put some on the bottom where the peak meets, because I like these to be really tight and so they don't have a gap at the bottom. And that's how you're going to make the petals for your shamrock. So because I made 6 of those, I glued 2 together to make 3 little leaves all together. But we also have to make a stem. So to do that, I have about, let's say 2.5 inches of the dark green paper, and I'm going to roll it up a few turns on my needle tool. That's the shape I'm looking for, just kind of a roll but with a long tail. And I want to make that tail sort of curved. So I run it down the end of my needle tool like I'm curling a ribbon on a package. Putting a little bit of glue between where the curl is and where it meets the rest of the strip. And I'm going to grab my tweezers again to kind of clamp that together. Give that a few seconds to dry. It really doesn't take very long at all if you just use a tiny dot of glue. This is what I'm looking for here for the start of my stem. Then I want to take a second piece of the same color, and I want it to meet the piece I just made. I want it to, on one end, meet the middle of the curl, and the other end I want to meet around where the stem ends. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to those 2 points on the first half, and I'm just going to lay down one end on the curl, burnish it a little bit so it stays right in that glue, and then where it meets on the other side, give it a little pinch, and then you can either cut or tear, whatever you feel comfortable with. Just going to give it a little rip there, and that's all it takes to make our stem. I've made a similar stem when we've done some apples in the past. I'll link to that video in the description box, because if you like making that shape, there's another way you can use it. I just think it makes sort of a cute 3-dimensional looking stem. So now everything should be dry. So let's take out all our pins and we will put our shamrock together. Just going to take a few seconds because this is a very basic shape, but because we made it on the quilling comb, it's got a little extra style to it. So shamrock shape, just those 3 petals together where the peaks meet. So to get that to stay, we just need a little dab of glue between every piece. Very simple. Zoom in a little bit so you can see exactly where I put the glue. It's just where every piece meets in the center. And then we're going to add our stem right at the bottom. Sorry, that was off camera for a second. A little bit of glue right where it's going to meet those leaves, and boop, right in there. Just let that dry for a few minutes and that's all set. So after a few seconds, everything is dry. You can lift that up. You can see everything's all together. I have another version I made here with a thinner paper. The one I made first is my standard 1/8 inch quilling paper. This one is 1/16 of an inch, so very, very thin. I don't usually use that paper on a quilling comb, but it was a fun experiment. The colors aren't quite as bold on camera, but it's still a fun look. If you have really thin paper, it's fun to play with that in a different way as well. All in all, pretty standard way to use a quilling comb, but using the 2 different color greens for these shamrocks really makes them pop. As always, leave any questions you have in the comments and I will answer them as soon as I can. I will leave links to everything you need, supplies, other videos in the description box for this video, so you can go there if you have anything else you need or anything else you want to watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.